Hey everyone, welcome back to Work Life Harmony. I was like counting down the minutes this morning before bringing on our amazing guest. If you are not familiar with Dr. Morgan Cutlip, after today, I think you will become obsessed with her work, what she does. I never miss anything that she puts out on social now. And so I want you to go ahead and introduce yourself, Dr. Morgan, and then we'll dive into this, what I think is a must listen conversation for any parent out there on how do we love our kids without losing ourselves along the way.
Thank you. That's a really generous introduction. This is funny. This is always the question I actually have the hardest time with. I'm like, where do I begin? So I have my PhD in psychology, and I've been in the field of relationship education for over 15 years.
Mhm.
I worked alongside my dad for a long time. He's in the same degree, same profession, and he was creating courses before it was the thing that everybody was doing. Just
Right.
teaching them
It's
live. It
like
was
the
like,
OG. Yeah.
yeah, he was like old school. We were going to conferences. So I was traveling with him back actually. So it's really always hard for me to describe when my career began. I was traveling with him in middle school to conferences, started speaking with him in college, all the way through grad school. And it's just kind of like it's his impact is sort of like ingrained and woven through my work. And something that is really important to me when I create courses, create content, when I wrote my book, is that I'm taking psychological theory, psychological principles, but I am articulating them in very practical, tangible, and actionable ways. And so that's kind of like my sweet spot. That's where I think I do my
Yep.
best work, is being really accessible with my information. Um, and so that's my work life. And then my personal life is I live in California. I'm from Ohio originally, but we ended up all the way out here. I married my high school sweetheart. We've been married 15
Love that.
years. Oh, I always have to say though, or I lose street cred. Like, can't be a relationship expert and not have dated anybody. But we weren't together we had a long time apart. So, but we are married now and we have two kids. She just turned 10, and then Roy is 7, and they're family names, which is why they sound like they're
I
elderly.
love that. And what I think makes everything that I've learned from absorbing all of your content and kind of back to your point of like taking the, the information that you are sharing around both navigating motherhood and relationship stuff at home, because I know we had parents that just adds a stressor to any marriage, right? Is it isn't just oh, I've tested this out and this works here for me in my home. Like what you are bringing to the table is backed with so much knowledge, education, thoughtfulness. But again, the way you present information, it is so relatable. It is so, I feel very seen and validated, but in a very comforting way with how you share your information. And so for me, I know that's where it has been super valuable. And when we were first introduced, and you were telling me about this amazing book, which I'd love for you to share everyone with some background about that. Just that whole concept of without losing yourself really rang true to me. I know my listeners are familiar with, kind of my I would say that wrong, pivotal moment when my daughter was about 2.5 or so. And some stranger just innocently asked me, "What do you do for fun?"
Oh,
And I didn't have an answer. And that was my wake up call on going, I don't even know who I am anymore, down to, and this may sound silly. And this is the question I want to ask you. Like, do you hear this from other people? I remember even struggling to figure out, what clothes do I wear now? Because I'm still working in corporate world, but now I'm a mom. And I remember just walking to clothing stores and I'm like, I don't even know what to shop for anymore. And
so
it sounds so
relatable.
silly
No, it
now,
doesn't.
but I remember just like, again, just this disconnection of, I don't know who I am anymore.
Yes. Oh, there's so many things to say in response to what you just talked about. I think that's entirely relatable. I remember having that same experience of like, I'm a mom, which means what to me now?
Yeah.
Am I supposed to be frumpy? Am I supposed, like, can I still like style something that I really enjoy? So it's like, how do I show up, and how do I how do I have a clothing that's functional and comfortable and you don't feel like you've lost yourself when you put it on,
Yeah.
because that is one expression of identity. I will say, just something you said earlier about, my content. I really appreciate your compliments are so genuine and nice. Um, so everything that I share in my content online, but especially in my book, is all based on research, on theory. It's actually based around a model of relationships that's at the core of all of the relationship education courses we create, my dad and I create. It's a model he developed in the 80s. It's been researched by people other than us. It's in textbooks. It's taught at universities. So it's a system for moms. And so I want to just say, like, yes, there is substance
Yeah.
to the stuff that I share about. However, I am a part-time stay-at-home mom who also homeschools. They go to an academy for homeschool kids 3 days a week, but the other days so the stuff that
You're
I
in the
do share about,
trenches.
I live it. Like so it's I've experienced it. I've put to practice the tools that I teach, and it has helped me. And so it is like this two-pronged sort of, I guess, presentation of information, which is like, this is based in what we know in psychology to be helpful, but then also like, yeah, like I'm in it too, and I live it too. And
Yeah.
it's been helpful for me. So, losing yourself. So your idea of, do moms not even know how to have fun anymore? I think this is actually something I hear all the time. I hear
Interesting.
that they don't understand what their hobbies are. They don't know what they need anymore. I've created this version of a reel more times than I can count, which is you finally get time alone and you don't know how to spend it.
Yeah.
Always does well, because I think that is really such an almost like a universal experience of a lot of moms. And part of why this happens is because it's almost like it's like a slow leak that we don't even realize is happening at first,
Mhm.
which is that we become a mom and we throw ourselves into it because we have a baby who is completely helpless. And we have also grown up in systems that, whether we're aware of it or not, tell us that a good mom self-sacrifices for, and a woman in general, but moms specifically, for the preservation of their relationships. And so we enter into motherhood, we stuff our knees, we put the baby first, and we love it. I mean, struggle a lot for a lot of us. It was for me. Um, and we do it, and we keep doing it. And before you know it, we're like years in. And we've been doing it for so long, we don't know any other way. And we haven't kept in touch with ourselves. And so it would make sense if what we do for fun changes, what we need changes, what our hobbies are change. But since we haven't stayed in touch with ourselves, we get several years in and we finally come up for air and we get that moment and we're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know who I am anymore.
Yeah. And I think on the, like, when you talk about that slow leak, uh, I think, the way I always think about it is it's kind of like, yeah, the baby's born and you have to do everything for them, right?
Yeah.
They can't. But then it's also like all of a sudden you find yourself like still cutting your meat for your 10-year-old because you've just been
Yes.
on habit for so long. And every now and then, like, I even find this, I'm like, Megan, like, get it, like, stop. They can do for themselves. So I think we just get into these habits, but unfortunately, there isn't sometimes that reality check looking back at us to go, hey, stop, you don't have to be 24/7 anymore
Yeah.
in service of, they're not helpless anymore.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, I think most mom, maybe it's just me, I'm projecting, but I think most moms even have that experience where we're like cutting the meat for our 10-year-old and we're doing all and we're picking up their stuff and we're doing it out of habit, out of just like this. And sometimes it's easier and faster,
Oh
which is
yeah.
another
Oh
thing. And
yeah.
we're like, we don't have time for this. And then you like boil over because all of a sudden you're like, how come you don't do this stuff for yourself? And we like unleash the
Were
wrath
you
of
in my
like,
house the other day?
like, all right, guys, now you're going to clean your rooms every
That's it.
single,
Yeah.
right? Like you kind of like swing to this extreme. And I think it happens in like multiple touch points of motherhood where we'll do this, where we'll be like,
Mhm.
whoa, we like bottle it up, we blow up. And it's because, again, like we have whatever you want to call it. We haven't kept in touch with ourselves. We haven't touched base with ourselves enough. And so all of a sudden it erupts in this one big moment, instead of being something that we're just like kind of regularly checking in on and
Yeah.
making adjustments.
So where can someone start if they are at that point where they're like, I have this time and now I don't even know what to do with it?
Yeah. So it's like never simple for me when people ask these questions, because there's sometimes like, this is what bugs me about self-care, which I could go on and whole rant
Oh, I know
about.
you and I have same very strong feelings about that
Very
term.
strong feelings about self-care. Um, because I believe that there's a lot of times like deeper stuff underneath, which we don't necessarily recognize until we become moms. So I remember when I was saying there's like these messages we get from whatever the structures we live in. So I liken it to like vitamin D. Like we go out in the sun and our body absorbs whatever. I mean,
Yep.
I'm not in this field. Our body absorbs the sunshine and it like processes and makes vitamin D. And we're like, we didn't even know that was happening. That's how I believe we sort of absorb these messages from society to make our needs small. So, and also things like what it means to be a good mom. So all our life before we become a mom, we are learning what it is to be a good mom by what we watch on TV, by what we see in our own caregivers, all of these things. And they are living deep within us, almost like dormant seeds. And then we have kids, and then it's like the water and the sunshine that was necessary. And then they blossom, and we're like, whoa, what happened here? And
Yeah.
so we then, not only is it like we forget what we need, but then we feel guilty about making time and space to meet our needs. And part of it is all of these messages we've absorbed. So when you ask me that question, I'm like, well, it depends. If you have hangups that you've got to get over in order to start feeling like you can take up some space in your
Mm.
relationships and assert your needs. And so sometimes it requires deeper reflection, deeper reconstruction of some of these belief systems that are like providing these roadblocks along the way that are making it hard. Other times it's like real simple stuff, right? It's just kind of like, well, let me make a list of like all the things that bring me joy. And at first you might just be complete blank space and so you have to sit in it long enough until things start to kind of percolate and you make a list. And next time you're alone, pull up your list. But I would guess that most women actually have things like bigger hangups they got to work through in order to access and become in touch with what they need.
Oh, so good. And I'm glad you brought up the list because I have not shared this with you. So back when I couldn't answer, what do I do for fun? I found myself in that same thing. I'm like, well, like, what do I do? How do I bring this in? And so I actually sat down and made a list.
Good.
And I was like, okay, and I was like, what did Megan of 10 years ago do for fun? Right. Because my life was different. So I didn't know if everything was still going to be a match. And so I went and just started brainstorming, like, what were all the things I used to do? And so I made this huge, massive list. And the first thing I noticed when I did that was very painful was I recognized none of those things were present in my life anymore, like
Yes.
literally none.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, okay, well, does this list even resonate with me anymore? Do I want to do anything on there? So I just kind of scrolled through it and was like, can I find one easy win here that in looking at it seems like fun to me still that I might want to do? And it's funny because the first thing on my list was I used to bake a lot. Like I actually had a little mini wedding cake business for a while. And I saw that and I started laughing. So I was like, hell no, I don't like, that doesn't sound fun to me because now I was in the stage of life where what's for dinner? Like just, so I'm like, I'm not going to bake again. But even for me, it was as simple as like the amount that I used to read, and it wasn't for education or self-improvement. Like I love like a Baldacci novel, like, oh my God, yes. And so that's where I started. I was like, I'm going to read at night, not to better myself, no parenting books, no business books, just read for reading. So I think there's ways, a lot of what I see out there is you see kind of that eruption, what you're talking about that women go through. And then the pendulum goes way over here. And it's like, now I need to go on a 5-day retreat.
Yes.
Right. Maybe you could just start with like reading a really good book for 20 minutes, like just something notice I didn't say it was self-care. That's fun for me. Like that
Yes.
was fun for me. And it
Ugh,
wasn't about taking care of my personal body. It wasn't
oh,
showering, wasn't personal hygiene.
oh gosh, you're like hitting on one of my beefs with self-care, which is all around the physical self, which there's way more to it. I love what you did. It's funny, I've been getting into more fiction lately because I always would read self-help type of stuff because I'm like, well, what else can I learn? And
Yeah.
it's like an escape and it's such an easy win. And I think that's an important piece to what you're saying is like, make the list. And this is not like simple, take a walk and then you feel better advice. This is like,
No.
make a list, go through it. What fits, what doesn't fit. I say needs change in two primary ways. Sometimes we like get shocked
Mm,
when needs change, especially in our partnerships. So like, you didn't need that before. Yeah, well, they change, right? So needs change in type and intensity. So sometimes you need more of something you
mm,
needed before. Like, for example, I always think I needed like a little bit of mental space, like quiet in order to be productive and creative and to like decompress. But I did not need much before kids. Now I
same.
need it desperately and I need a decent amount. And so I think that's an important piece to remember. And so as people move through their list, what do I just still need, but maybe I need more of? What's changing completely? And that's okay. And I have so many things to say. Sorry. Okay. And then just interrupt me. The other thing I think that it can be really helpful. So like the baking one, it's reminding me because in my book, I tell this like whole idea of a movie fantasy motherhood moment where I think we all have these, like, I imagined motherhood to be this
Oh
particular
yeah.
way. And it was around baking. And, but there are things on our list probably of things that we need that we can almost stack with our kids. So if you're in the trenches and you're like, I don't have time to do like these kids are on top of me all day long. There are things that you can like do that meet both people's needs. So let's baking, for example. Our daughter loves to bake. I hate baking, but if I loved it, right, we could bake together. And then
Right.
you're meeting two needs at the same time. And there's lots of actual opportunities for that I think we lose sometimes. Is like we can meet
Mhm.
our own need while also taking care of our kids. The other thing that is a bit bigger picture that you're talking about, which we call in our programs the starvation principle, which is that a lot of us, don't, it applies to all relationships with our partner, relationship with ourselves, but it's that you don't feed your relationship until you're absolutely starving. The
Mm,
classic example is when a couple's like not been on a date in years and they're like desperate and they finally make that happen and they're like pulling up to the house before they enter the chaos again and they're like, we got to do this more often, and then they run into their life, it gets busy again, and like fast forward 6 months have passed and they haven't done it. And we do this with ourselves, which is that we reach the point of desperation, we go on a 5-day retreat, we think we have become self-actualized, just to end up where we were before. And so these big hits are wonderful, but that's not the way to like feel good over time in our motherhood experience and in our relationship with ourselves over the rest of our lives, is that we have to regularly be nourishing ourselves instead of waiting till we're absolutely desperate.
mm. That's so good. And it's funny. It's making me think back. I can remember years ago, like one of the things that really fills me up and makes me feel like me is girls' weekends, like with my
Mhm.
sisters, our best friend. And it doesn't even have to be an extravagant thing. It just might be we're together at one person's house and we watch chick flicks at night and eat popcorn
Yeah.
and stay up too late. And that's it. Like it doesn't need a 5-day retreat or whatever. And it had been a very long time since I had one.
Mhm.
And I remember vividly the first time getting in my car to go away for the night. And I'm talking years. And I probably spent the first hour of the drive just crying. I was
Yeah.
crying because I was so starved for it. And I think that happened for the next couple of years, that every time I got in my car to go do the thing that filled me up, like it was almost like leaving skid marks and then this release.
Mhm.
Whereas now that I'm so much more aware of it, like when I go have those times because I'm nourishing it more, I leave
Mhm.
the house very calmly. It's happy hugs goodbye. I'm joyful on the car ride. And I'm like, okay, this is a very different, I'm not starving myself of it anymore, that now it's so much smoother and easier for everybody because I'm checking in on that and feeding it regularly.
Yes. Ugh. It is true. And I think what you're saying is really important for moms to hear, which is that those first few times of actually leaning into some of the stuff can be really painful and
Yeah.
hard. And
Because we're pushing some stuff away for so long. Like, I don't have time. That then all of a sudden it's like you're alone. It just kind of bubbled up and I'd be crying. I'm like, I don't even know why I'm crying. Like, I'm going to do the thing I want to do. What's going on here? But it would almost just feel like this
release.
welcome release. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a release. I saw some piece of content recently that was talking about how when you hold it together for a really long time and then finally you have that moment of like safety or calm or space or whatever it is, how our bodies just kind of like crash. And
Mm.
my husband, he travels for work almost every week. Miraculously, he's like on vacation just at home this week, but almost every week he's gone. And I'm like, oh, that's why I'm like so tired all the time when he gets home. Yeah, because it's like when he's gone, I hold it together, and he comes home and
Yep.
I'm like, crumble.
Yeah.
And I think that, moms who've been holding it together for like 10 years, and then you finally get that moment, it makes sense to expect a little bit of a crumbling or an exhaustion that hits. Like, why am I so tired? I'm resting now, or I'm taking a minute, but makes
Yeah.
sense.
Because it's been all in there. Now, what would be, are there any things that that a mom can do if she's unsure if she's in a place where she's lost herself or not, right? Because I think, like, looking back, I wouldn't, if you had told me when I was in it
Mm.
that was going on, I would have resisted. I would have been like, no, 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 that's not me. Like, I'm fine. I got everything in motion, all of that. Are there any signs or things that we should be kind of a way to flip the mirror inward a little bit on a regular basis to kind of check in with ourselves to make sure that we aren't losing ourselves along the way?
Yeah, I mean, I think losing. So
It doesn't have to be full loss of self, but like we're heading down a path maybe we shouldn't be going down or need to pivot a little.
yeah, I think that like what you're asking is basically like the crux of my book, which is to get really good at regularly checking in on
Mm.
yourself. And then I get a system for doing that um because because we are like so good at managing life, managing the people in our life, but we don't turn the same skill set toward ourselves. And so it teaches moms, how do you do that? What does that look like? And how do you do it in a manageable amount of time? But with losing yourself, I mean, that's just a phrase that I think a lot of us resonate with. So
Right.
there's not like a formal definition, but I think there's something that is really important to normalize, and that's that you are going to get lost in motherhood. Maybe
True.
yeah, like maybe for a
True.
moment. I mean, I think,
Yeah.
at the end of my book, I kinda like in my
I
summary
still don't know what the
chapter.
hell I'm doing.
Yeah, like
Like, I'm
it's
making it up every day.
I think that's the thing, is like, yeah, in the last chapter, I list like it's like this long of how many times I have felt lost in motherhood. And sometimes it's just like, it was like early on, like seeing a reflection of myself in the mirror. I mean, I think it's more recently as the kids are getting bigger and more, and I'm like, who am I? Who am I gonna be when they're not here? And like, I want to just normalize for moms. It's okay to get lost in motherhood sometimes, and I think it demands it, right? It
Yeah.
demands it. The job demands it sometimes, and so we live in a culture where like the cliche statement is we're all looking to find balance in our lives, and it drives me absolutely crazy because balance.
I don't like that word.
I know. It's funny how the same concepts apply in like different niches.
Yes.
Um, but balance is complete myth. It's baloney. And I think we have to first dispel that myth, because if you're a mom and you're like, okay, I should never be lost in motherhood, and then you find yourself a little bit lost, like, oh shoot, I feel like I'm too invested in my kids right now, not enough in me, then you're going to feel shame and judgment. And like, that's going to just make things harder and make things worse. And so life is going to create complications, difficulty. It's designed in such a way, I don't know why it is, but it pulls our relationships apart. We see it in our partnerships the most, like in the most easy of ways, because if you think about having kids, like that's a blessing and a wonderful thing, but like it's inconvenient for your committed relationship. And so
Right.
it just, even the good stuff pulls us apart from our relationships. Motherhood will pull us away from ourselves. And so don't be upset when you get lost, but also empower yourself with the skills and the tools to regularly maintain a connected relationship with yourself, because our relationships don't autocorrect. We have to be intentional about how we care for them and how we assess how we're doing.
See, this is why I think there's just such a great synergy between your approach to this and my approach to pretty much life as a whole, which is this idea of, for those of you that have been in my time management program, my top program, it's all about learning the systems and processes. The systems and processes can stay with you for the rest of your life, no matter how different your life looks. So you learn the core systems and processes, and then you continue to use them through all stages of your life, which is so different than the one-time fix, right? And so this is
Yes.
why I love where you're talking about, no, that's the whole purpose of having this book out there is, no, we need to learn what is the regular system that we are using to be checking in, to be making little autocorrects here and there, or maybe even it's the realization of, no, this is just going to be a short season where I
Yes.
need to be all in motherhood because of whatever's going on. But when you have that system backing you up and you have it to check in with, it makes those all-in times so much easier to deal with. So this is again why I can't recommend this enough for folks to go out, get the book, start implementing that, so that we aren't on this. I think when you don't have the systems is when you have that explosion and you end up going on a 5-day,
Yes.
right? Like, oh my
Yes.
gosh. Whereas if you have these things in place in your life regularly, where you are, you may have a system for how often you clean your bathroom, right? You should be having a system for how often you're checking in with yourself
Yeah.
and what that looks like. And so I think this is so important. And it's what I feel is missing for so many moms out there. We're taught the one-time fix, right?
We
Oh, do this
are.
one thing, get this one thing under control and organized. But then what we're missing is, well, what do we do to keep up with it? So it doesn't all
Exactly.
fall apart again.
We're very aligned. And I just to highlight, like add on with what you're saying. So in the book, I give moms it's a model of relationships. So it's a visual. So I think that we
Love
remember
visuals.
things. I know
Yes.
we remember things when we can like picture them in our minds. And basically you can kind of do a self scan or a self check-in in the amount of time it takes you to like go to the bathroom. It's just like super fast. And I say in the book, and I say this as much as possible, and it's echoing something you're saying, which I think is really, really key, is that sometimes you do a scan and you're like, oh, I can turn these dials real quickly and I'm going to like recalibrate. I'm going to feel a little bit better. And sometimes you're going to say, I don't have time for this. I need something much bigger than what I can do in this moment. However, there's power in definition. I say like what you can define, you can dominate, because when you define something, it feels more in your control.
Yeah.
Yes, it feels more like, okay, I'm empowered with this information because then I can decide what I want to do about it. And so if a mom does a scan and you define what's going wrong or what's feeling kind of like there's a deficit, even if you can't do anything about it, you'll feel relief in being able to define what it is. And then you can just like put a pin in it. Like at some point I need to come back to this. During the process of writing my book, I was like very much a pin in a lot of things where I was like, kind of like when a kid's like, can you help me? Can you help me? And you're like, in a minute. It's very much like I had to kept saying, like, I'd be like working and be like dying to go do something and be like, in a minute. Like in a minute, I'll come back to you. Don't worry. I see you. I'll come back to you. And that is really reassuring and powerful for moms too.
So good. So good. So where is the best place, one, for people to connect and follow you? I'm obsessed with your Instagram.
Thank you.
And second, where can people get the book?
So my Instagram is Dr. Morgan Cutlip, and
we'll have it in the show notes too,
okay,
guys.
perfect. Yeah, I'm always like, there's no period after
Yeah.
doctor. I do own that account too. You will not find any content. And then cutlip is an injury to the lip. Literally, it's a compound word. That's just how it is. And then you can find my book on so it's for pre-order now. It comes out in early September, but I'm offering a bunch of bonuses when you pre-order. And also I recorded the first 3 chapters in audio, so you can actually listen to them right away. And I'm really excited to offer that, because I think with moms, like, we're not, that my publisher's like, give them a PDF. I'm like, I'm not giving moms a PDF. They won't read it. Yeah, they need to hear it. They need to hear it. So I'm really excited that when you pre-order, you get those 3 chapters immediately. And so that's on my website, drmorgancutlip.com/book, or if you just go to the homepage, you'll find it right front and center.
Perfect. I am just will be literally waiting at my mailbox for the actual release date of this. But you guys, when you're listening to this right now, go do the pre-order, get the bonuses, have that. And also, you guys, we are here in the month of August when you're listening to this, which means that I have not told you the best news about Dr. Morgan Cutlip. She has graciously agreed to be one of the incredible guest experts coming into the annual Planapalooza event. And early bird tickets are on sale right now. You can get your seat for annual Planapalooza. Even people are like, I can't believe you're doing this for so low, for only $47 for the entire live event and the recordings. And so now that you've gotten to meet Dr. Morgan here a little bit, the training that she is going to be providing inside of our Planapalooza event is something that you will get access to as well. So just another goodie. And truly, I can't thank you enough for joining us in Planapalooza when you've had all this going on with the new book and everything.
It's an honor to be
amazing.
a part of it. I'm so excited to be a part of it and really grateful. So thank you.
We are as well. Do you have any final words of wisdom that you want to leave with our listeners?
Ooh, this is the most difficult question. I'm like,
I know, right? It's always so hard.
I think choose one place to start. I think sometimes when we get gung-ho and excited about making changes in our life, we get really overwhelmed with all of the things that we can start doing. And so choose one little win today. And I think that will help you build momentum to make bigger changes in your life.
Love that. Thank you so, so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.